shoulder health series. So as promised in part 3, we are going to start to introduce a little bit of load bearing to really support the bone density of the joint of your shoulder and increase our shoulder joint resilience. So for this practice, we're going to need just a few props. You're going to have one of your blocks, maybe a blanket or pad underneath you just for a little bit of extra support for your spine. And then we're going to be using a cushion or a bolster. So grab your things and let's get started. All right, we're going to come down onto our backs for the first part of this practice. And we are going to be using this cushion that we brought along for the ride. So go ahead and come down onto your back. We might start here today by just taking your peace fingers to your hip points. We'll come into our constructive rest, so your knees are bent, soles of your feet are on the floor. And we're going to do a couple of our posterior anterior tilts to the pelvis, right? This gentle spinal undulation, right? So whether you're adding this in to the full 3-part shoulder health series or you're doing this as a one-off, it's a nice idea to start with just a little bit of mobilization and warming up through this lumbar spine. So take a couple more moments to gently kind of tip the pelvis forward and tip the pelvis back. And let's do that one more time. Let's go into that forward tilt where you have a big space underneath your low back. And then let's come into the posterior tilt where we're really minimizing the space that we have underneath the lumbar spine. And we're going to keep this one, and you're going to reach for your cushion, and we're going to take this cushion and just place it over your chest. So we'll take the hands underneath, and we're going to do the world's hardest push-up here. You're going to press this cushion all the way up towards the sky, right? So that's not so bad. But what I want us to do is take a look at these elbow joints, and if we are locking the joints, let's see if we can soften the joints. Right? It's not a full 90-degree bend, but it's definitely a sense of keeping and maintaining some softness in the joints. The second thing I want us to look at is whether these elbows are kind of winging out to the side. And if so, let's pull them in so that your elbows are kind of pointing towards your thighs. And then from here, we're going to start to lower this cushion overhead, but we're not going to let it go all the way to the floor. So we're hovering this cushion maybe 3 or 4 inches above the floor. In fact, if you turn and kind of look side to side, we should be able to see our upper arms from the periphery of our eyes. Maybe once you've got your cushion established where it's going to be, we start to close our eyes. Right? Starting to connect to some of the sensations of engagement in your trunk. So this is really about isometric contraction. You might be feeling a sense of maybe that serratus, which is our wing-shaped muscle that sits underneath the armpit and kind of wraps around your ribcage. You might be feeling that sense of kind of hugging, right? It's almost like you've got a muscle, which you do, on both sides, hugging that rib basket. And of course, if we're activating a little bit of that gentle posterior tilt to the pelvis, you're going to start to notice your core coming online as well. So let's see what happens here as we start to bring these arms back up overhead. And I think that you're going to notice as your wrists come right above your shoulders that all of those muscles that we're just activating relax. So we are going to do this a couple more times, and maybe as your arms came back up, we lost that posterior tilt. So let's find a couple more of our spinal undulations, just a little bit of mobilization here through the lower part of the trunk. And then ultimately, we're going to meet with that gentle posterior tilt, right? So it's a little more connection of your spine to the floor. Check in with those elbows. Let's get our alignment set up. Soft bend to the elbows, elbows pointing towards your thighs. And we're going to go again where we're lowering this cushion overhead and we're pausing here. right? Starting to activate some strength, especially to this muscle that we call your serratus. We are going to start to move into some load bearing here in just a moment. That's how we build the bone density. But in order to support us in our journey of load bearing, we're going to activate a little of this core and serratus strength. So while we're here for just another beat or two, I want to extend this opportunity here to maybe float 1 foot an inch up off the earth. And then maybe float, the second foot up. Now that's full engagement. We might feel a little shaking. You might try that and go, oh, no way. Feet back to the earth. Maybe we try it again. Float 1 foot just an inch up off the floor. And then the other. And maybe we just kind of play with this on this round, right? Activating a little more of our core stabilizer muscles. All right, let's go ahead and release feet to the floor. Start to bring that cushion up overhead. Notice that moment where everything relaxes. Of course, my favorite number is 3, so we're going to do this one more time. So again, let's start this off with a couple of our posterior, anterior tilts, a little more mobilization through the lumbar spine, kind of rolling right over your sacrum, so we get to kind of brush the skin along the back of the pelvis. And then let's say that the next time you're in that gentle posterior tilt, we're going to keep it. You're going to check in with those elbows again. We're going to start to lower that cushion back up overhead. This gets surprisingly challenging. Depends on how heavy your cushion is here. But just a little note that as you continue to kind of build your strength, we might be adding a little more load to what we're balancing in the palms of our hands right now. So I leave that to you. Another way that we can move through the progressions is to slowly, incrementally grow our capacity to hover the feet up off the earth, right? But still maintaining that gentle posterior tilt, because you're going to notice that as soon as your feet come up, the pelvis wants to pull forward into that forward anterior tilt. So we're super strong and activated here. A lot of isometric contraction. All right, if feet are hovering, let's let these feet go to the floor. Bring your cushion back up overhead. Woo! And from here, you can bend your elbows. See, I told you, world's largest, strongest reverse push-up. So let's take this cushion, place it off to the side. That's really all that we are going to use it for. And you're going to roll to your right or your left, press through your hands, start to bring yourself back up, and we're going to use that strength that we just activated. So let's grab our block. We're going to be taking the block on its medium setting, and we'll place it here on the mat. We'll spin around, take this into our tabletop position. I'm going to take a moment just to change the direction of my blanket so that I have something supporting my knees, but I have my feet and my hands to the sticky mat. So tabletop position, we're going to start with your wrists underneath your shoulders, knees are underneath your hips. And I want you to take this long block and place it underneath your sternum, right? Sternum is the breastbone here, right in the middle of the rib cage. So let's get it set, más o menos, somewhere in the vicinity of your sternum. And then from here, we're gonna adjust our tabletop. So you're gonna cross your ankles. We're gonna pull the heels up towards the glutes. And then from here, we're gonna shift forward into a modified plank. I'm going to walk my knees back here a little bit, and you'll notice as we come into this modified plank, we're no longer resting on the patella, on the kneecap, right? We're more towards the very bottom of your thigh bone. And then from here, we're going to walk these wrists back just maybe an inch, so you have your wrist just a little bit behind the line of your shoulder, and there's that block underneath your sternum. We're going to do some push-ups here. You're going to keep your elbows nice and close to your side body as you lower sternum to tap and press back up. Let's do it again. Tap and press. Tap, press. Tap, press. we're gonna keep going, and I'm gonna encourage you to keep these elbows nice and close to your side body. This is what we call chaturanga push-ups, right? So we're not winging these elbows out to the side. Woo, let's go, one more. And as you come up, you can uncross your ankles, and we'll push all the way back into an embryo pose. We're gonna stay really active with these arms. So I'm gonna invite you to come up onto your tented fingertips. Feel that kind of hollowing out in the palms of your hands, hollowing out in the armpits. And this gives us a nice counter for the wrists. It gives us a nice counter for the shoulders. All right, from your embryo pose, let's start to bring ourselves back up into this tabletop. We're gonna come back into another set of those chaturanga push-ups, but before we come into that, let's take the block off to the side. Bring yourself back to the middle of the mat. You may have found that you moved all the way back to the back of the mat. And from here, we're gonna drop this down to forearms. So we'll take a moment to take a break off of these wrists. But I want you to reach across to see that your elbows are underneath your shoulders so that we are stacking on the strength of this humerus bone, right, the upper arm bone, as well as beginning to find that load bearing in the shoulder joints. Once you've got your elbows underneath your shoulders, you can bring these forearms back out in front. All right, we're gonna take this right forearm and you're gonna walk it in just about an inch towards the midline. Bring your left hand right behind your left ear, and we're gonna start to find some thoracic twists. So that's the upper back. I want you to keep your right forearm plugged into the floor. Keep both knees plugged into the floor. And explore your spinal rotation to the left. And then bring your elbow back to tap the floor. Let's do it again, a little twist and tap, right? We're gonna do 6 more of these. And you might be surprised to find that you don't actually have as big a range of motion in the thoracic spine as maybe you thought. Do 1 or 2 more here. And as your elbow comes back to the floor, let's release that forearm. You can start to bring yourself back up onto your hands. And we're gonna get set up for that second set of chaturanga push-ups. So let's grab your block again. Medium setting is running the length of your sternum. Let's cross the ankles again. Pull your heels towards your glutes. Shift the hips forward or walk your knees back, both will work. And then lastly, we check to get those wrists just a little bit behind the line of the shoulders. All right, here we go. Elbows stay nice and close to the side body. We're gonna tap and lift. Tap and lift. Let's do 7 more or 6 more. Now it's 5 more. Let's go for 5, 4, 3, 2, last one. As you come up, uncross the ankles, go all the way up and back. Let's come back into that embryo pose. And again, let's keep these arms really active. Come up onto your fingertips. See if you can hollow out the palm of your hand. So we really get a counter pose for the wrists. We get a counter pose for the shoulders. We'll take just another breath or 2 here. And then from this place, let's start to bring ourselves back up into that tabletop. And again, you're going to notice that you moved back towards the back of your mat. So let's move the block off to the side. Let's bring this back so we're centered on our mat. Drop it down to your forearms. And let's do this thing again where we're reaching across to see that elbows are underneath the shoulders. And then you can release the forearms. Take a look at your left forearm. You're going to walk this one in just about an inch towards the midline. And then bring your fingertips to the back of your ear, maybe base of your skull. And let's find our thoracic spinal rotation to the right. And then we'll come back to tap, and we'll twist again. And if you're anything like me, you're noticing you've got maybe a big difference in your range of motion for twisting, going to one side or the other. That's pretty common for all of us, right? We have movement patterns in the body, and when we really plug forearm and knees into the floor, those movement patterns become really apparent. All right, next time elbow is down, we're pausing. You're gonna release both forearms, and I want you to take a moment here to reach across, and let's just see that the elbows are back underneath our shoulders. And from here, you can release these forearms. Let's take your left leg back, come to the ball mound of your left foot, and then stretch the right leg back to meet the left. We're gonna come into this forearm plank. Now we're activating that core, we're activating the serratus, and we are building bone density. Salud. Here's to your health. All right, lower your left knee and lower your right knee. All right, take a moment to look at those elbows because they are sneaky. They have a tendency to widen out as we move through this. So let's bring the elbows back in. And this time we're going to take right leg back and then your left leg back. And let's tap into our capacity, AKA core, right? Maybe feel your elbows and your forearms and your hands pressing down into the earth, lighting everything up. And then lower your right knee and lower your left knee. All right, check those elbows. We're gonna do this one more time. You can pretty much count on me, always doing things in threes. We're gonna go left leg back and right leg back. You got it. Let's stay, let's breathe, let's be with all that is, right? Again, here's to our health. Here's to a healthy range of motion in the shoulder joints, healthy core, healthy spine. Take just another breath. And then this time we're gonna lower both of the knees, tops of the thighs, pelvis and belly. Notice that your body might take a nice big sigh as we come all the way down to the floor. You're in your Sphinx pose setup. You're gonna turn your fingertips out towards the long edge of the mat. Press through your hands, lift your forearms. Let's do this thing again where we refrain from locking the elbows. And then from here, slide those arms all the way forward. This is what we call humble pranam. You're coming all the way to the floor. And we're gonna take a moment to stretch this out. So let's open these arms out into a T. So you're really reaching your arms out and away from the heart space. Take a bend to your left knee so the sole of your left foot is pointing towards the ceiling. Bring your left hand in close to your side body. Press left hand into the floor and let's roll onto the right side body. Nice big stretch, sweet release. We're not gonna stay, so from here, come all the way back onto your abdomen. And let's go to the other side. Bend to the right knee, bring your right hand in, roll to the left side body. Let's do it a couple more times. I call these rolling shoulder rollovers, right? Just kind of rocking the body side to side, getting a sweet little sense of release and stretch for all of the tissues, all of the muscles that have been supporting us on this shoulder journey. All right, let's go one more time over to the right. And we're gonna go one last time to the left. And then I'm gonna meet you back at center. And once you're all the way back at center, let's bring two hands in to either side of the ribcage. We call this Bhujangasana, cobra pose. In fact, you're gonna roll these shoulders down towards the floor, scoop them up towards your ears, roll them up and back. And then from here, gently press through your hands and let's come all the way back up to the knees. We'll take these knees wide set your hips back towards your heels. And we're going to take this right arm and you're going to thread it underneath the left. Kind of reach this left arm forward. We'll take just a moment to do one more counter stretch. Nice little squeeze to the deltoids, squeeze to the armpit, kind of protracting that shoulder blade on the right side. Take just another round of breath. And then start to pull your left hand back. We'll press through the left hand to release the right arm, and you'll switch sides. Left arm comes underneath the right, lowering down, right? We feel that squeeze to the lymph nodes, squeeze to the breast tissue. We're opening up the back of the heart space, and we're actually starting to move those shoulder blades around back there as well. All right, from here, let's pull this right hand all the way back. Press to the right hand, release your left arm. And I'm going to meet you back in this upright position. We're going to come onto your right or left hip, swing your legs around, and you can start to make your way all the way back down onto your back. All right, so this is going to conclude part 3 of this shoulder health series. Maybe you put all parts together for one big practice, and if that's the case, it might be really nice now to just let yourself settle onto the earth, right? Let your body integrate this full shoulder health practice. So I'm going to leave us here in this place. One more note about part 3 and our strength building exercises is that as we start to build the strength, you'll notice that you can stay in some of these places longer, or you can do more repetitions of things, right? Maybe we're holding forearm plank longer. Maybe we're balancing a heavier cushion, a little more load bearing in our cushion. Maybe we're hovering feet for longer amounts of time. So as we build our capacity, right, you've got the bandwidth to start to play with some of these things. But this is a really good place to start. We've moved through our synovial circulation. We've found some myofascial release, self-massage techniques, and started to begin our strength building practice. So I am going to leave you here. Thanks for joining me. Salud. Here's to our health.